Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Rosen Sports Monday on this wintry Monday morning. Mark Rosen with you, of course. First of all, I want to thank our sponsor, Lexus of Wayzata, Lexus of Maplewood, our good friend Charlie Swanson. We'll hear from them a little bit later. Yes, I am loving my RX, Lexus RX. Took my first road trip this weekend. My wife and I went down to Mankato, met her parents down there, and it drove like a dream. So I'm loving it. I'm sure you will, too. Go take it for a test drive. We'll hear from them a little bit later. My guest today is kind of the hardest working man at KFAN, I would say, unabashedly. Justin Gaard, I'm thrilled to have him here. I feel like a proud papa, Gaardsy, because not that I've had any hand at all in your success, but Gaardsy's done what every radio, TV journalist should do, especially in these trying times, uncertain times in radio and TV. Grab every opportunity with gusto and run with it. And I want to see, I had to write these down because your job descriptions are lengthy.
Yeah.
Your A job, of course, producer / sidekick / sometimes host Dan Barrero Show 3 to 6. That's the moneymaker at KFAN. That's Monday through Friday. Co-host Gopher Weekly with the PJ Fleck during the college football season, of course, with Mike Grimm. Sideline reporter for all the Gopher football home and away games. That keeps you pretty busy. You co-host with Barrero on Enough Said on my station now, Fox 9 on Friday nights. Had to throw that in there. Play-by-play for the Gopher women's basketball team. We'll talk about them a little bit later. A big surprise, up-and-coming team that we all are all keeping an eye on for the near future. Then all of a sudden, I put on during the high school girls basketball tournament. You're doing play-by-play for the high school girls basketball tournament on Channel 45. You're also a full-time husband, of course, and I know a very active dad because your 3 kids are here today at Share Productions because they're on spring break.
Yes, one more day.
So the question I have, are you living the dream while sometimes feeling overwhelmed at the same time? Because you're a busy man.
I am. Do we need to break after that intro?
I'm exhausted. I think you can just take it from here.
No, that is the right phrase. I'm really not overwhelmed. Really not overwhelmed. It is living a dream for sure. Everything that you just mentioned on that sheet is something that I've absolutely always wanted to do. So I think I'm extremely lucky, and I'm lucky that I have a lot of people who are flexible with me. Mm-hmm. That's what I get all the time is how do you manage your schedule? How do you do all these things? My stuff, all those jobs.
Correct.
They're fine. They take a lot of work and preparation, and you try to do a good job with it, but I love doing it. So it's not a big deal for me to do it. But when I have to miss a show or I have to miss a family event or I have to go on the road, a lot of people have to pick up the slack for me. So I feel like it's their flexibility more so than mine that makes me do it.
Well, let's back up the bus a little bit, first of all, because your association with Edina continues on today. You could be very sarcastic and about the Edina Hornets, and we know about their reputation, et cetera, but you also won, not one, but 2 state high school tennis titles with them. And what years were those? And what was that?
Long time ago now, 2000, 2001.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got my 25th high school, what do you call it, reunion this August. It's already on the calendar. So 25 years ago. Yeah.
So tennis was your sport? Did you just gravitate towards it naturally, or was it just kind of?
I figured you'd ask me about this. I figured, and I don't know exactly because I don't come from like a tennis family. My parents didn't really play tennis. They played like you would play, but my dad just liked it. My mom just liked it. And so they got us into it. We all played basketball growing up. My sisters did the same thing. Right. They played tennis. They played basketball. So we did all of that. So I don't really know. And I need to ask my dad how he kind of settled in on that because my earliest memories are just playing with him.
But it's one thing playing tennis like a lot of us did and enjoying it with our buddies or even getting on a team. Quite another to win 2 state titles. So your ascension must have been, when was that time when you knew you could compete at that highest level in high school?
Probably like 14 or 15.
Really?
Yeah, 14 or 15. And again, it goes back to other people. Like first of all, my parents did such a good job of like finding the right people to have us around. And, we always loved sports. We were a sports loving family. So I was always just entrenched. I feel like kind of like my kids are. They were just at the NCAA women's basketball tournament at Williams Arena. Like I have so many of those memories growing up. So we were always just like a sports family. And we just they found good opportunities for good people. You know, one of my coaches, Greg, like who I think is the best in literally the country that nobody knows about. And sadly, probably informed my off the court life more than my on the court life. And that's
he did that to all of us, even if we didn't play with.
So that's not even a family friendly podcast here. So yeah, 14 or 15 is when I was good. I was like a good local junior player, played some national tournaments and stuff. But then around 14 or 15, I took a pretty big leap where I was pretty invested, playing a lot, you know, had some great coaches, some great partners. And that's when I kind of took the jump and felt like that would be a realistic goal.
I know everyone always jokes about, we can't find that second championship that he had. I remember it. But at the same time, when you look back on it, I mean, it's a long time ago, but how big a deal that must have been. Really something to win a state high school championship in anything.
Yeah,
an individual sport like tennis. I don't know if I could. That would be the zenith of maybe my life at that time.
Well, this still sounds stupid, but you mentioned where I grew up in Edina.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's doing something like that. Everybody that you know. And that's one of the advantages. You know, I think it's the weirdest place in the world to grow up. I don't live there now, thank God. Everybody I went to school with still lives there because that's how it works. I loved it. It's a great place to grow up, but it's different. But everybody's doing something at a really high level. Like all my friends played in a state tournament, whether it was not.
So it's just a natural thing.
Well, it's just you grow up around it, so you expect that of yourself. You see the opportunities.
So you start with that last word, opportunities, because they have and I grew up in St. Louis Park, and it was one of many arch rivals of Edina.
Yeah.
You could never be as good. And yes, we all heard about the cake eaters, et cetera, to this day when they play in the state high school hockey tournament.
My kids call me a cake eater.
They do.
Yeah, they're in Minnetonka, so they call me a cake eater. Yeah.
But there obviously was something in the water, as they say, with coaching. Because the cycle continues today that families gravitate to Edina.
Well, any of the suburbs right now, like the West Metro, the West Metro it's crazy to me. And now they're good. Like when I grew up, Edina was good at a couple things. Mm-hmm. They were good at hockey, obviously tennis. Right. They were good at golf. Now they're good at everything. And now even at hockey, they've taken it to a totally different level. Like they go to state every year, and it's like a big deal if they don't. That wasn't totally like that when I grew up. Like there were still, and I don't think that's a good thing, by the way. Like I like having the more democratic where you can grow up with your buddies, and that's a whole nother thing, high school sports. But just the opportunities, like I said this one time, like you grow up in a place where like nothing seems impossible to you. Mm-hmm. Like you can just think, well, I know someone that does this, or someone knows someone that did this, or we have a guest speaker who comes in, they went to go work in DC or New York. Yeah. Like you feel like you have the entire world, which is, I can't imagine a better thing to have as a kid.
The people in Edina, even today, do they feel insulated from all the criticism, and they hear it? They know what's going on.
Oh, well, now they revel in it. I think even more so. So it is what it is.
Yeah. What is your earliest sports memory as a spectator? As competitive as you became, but what's the one thing that stands out that you recall watching when you were growing up?
A lot at Williams Arena, a lot of Gopher basketball, a lot of my earliest memory as a fan is living in Minneapolis and renting the 1987 World Series, like basically highlight video. Mm-hmm. And I was 5. Was I 5? You know, I'm not good at math. I was 5 when the Twins won 87. I was 9 when they won in 91. Right. So I'm sure I watched you and your reports, but I remember being at a video store, a movie store, like not a Blockbuster, but like a mom and pop around the corner, somewhere in South Minneapolis, around 4905 10th Avenue South, where I grew up before we moved. And I remember watching that video so much that when we would return it to the store, the person would say, "What would you like to watch again?" And I would say, "Can I just rent this again?"
No kidding.
Like that's just how much I love sports. And so the Twins runs of 87 and 91 are right up there. I remember going to the first year of Wolves basketball at the Dome, when they got here in 1989.
That's a big deal.
It was huge. And I even, where the Lexus Club is, where we hang out now, you more than me, unfortunately. I remember when that was the atrium for Target Center. And walking into Target Center the first time and seeing those neon lights up top, you just thought, like, what is this world? This is the craziest. So, like, I grew up on Kirby Puckett. Obviously, then Kevin Garnett comes through, Randy Moss with the Vikings a little bit later. But those Twins teams were probably And Clem's basketball teams were probably my first memories.
Well, you mentioned Williams Arena. You spent a lot of time there. Those were special times. I mean, I go back obviously a lot longer with the Kevin McHale's and Flip Saunders and Jim Dutcher's teams. That's how I kind of cut my teeth in the broadcasting business, working with them, and even going back to Michael Thompson and Ray Williams and all those teams. But to try to describe it, and you've experienced a lot of Williams Arena right now with Gopher women's basketball. And there's been a lot of talk about what should they do with the barn. We've seen it. You see it all the time. When that place comes alive, no matter what, if it's men's team, women's team, whatever it still is a special place.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with the barn? Is there any, do you have any feeling about it?
Something needs to. I've gone back and forth on it. A couple of years ago, I was just blow the thing up and start over. I get why people want to keep it, because it is cool. Like, I think about those tournament games that we just had and I just mentioned my first memories. I remember like walking up the steps as a kid to Williams Arena, because you can't see the court for people that haven't been there. So you go up the steps and there's the court, and it's this raised floor, and it's magic, right? If you're a sports fan. And so, but to have those memories with my dad, and now we have a great picture of my kids, my wife, and my dad reacting to the Amaya battle shot that sends them to the Sweet 16.
Cool.
Like, that's the advantage of Williams Arena. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I will tell you as a spectator, my wife Karen and I went to we went to the UCLA game. They won the national championship this weekend. Gophers was a fun game. I mean, you knew they couldn't compete with them, but I got to tell you, I know I'm tall, 6'6". I could not get comfortable in those seats. We had great seats. We had friends who had season tickets. They said, "Here, do you want to use our tickets?" I went, "Yeah, well, we've done it before." I go to the Orpheum Theater, go to here, I couldn't literally. I said, "I can't come back here."
Yeah.
And I'm not a giant, but I'm a tall enough guy. But I just could not. Once I sat down, that was it. I could not move my legs.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and those are great seats.
You're exactly
but that's
right.
not acceptable in this day and age, where you have to have some comfort for the fans.
Exactly.
I'm not being crazy about that.
When people, like the last few years when I've been on this and said, we got to do something with it, people always say the cliche line, which is true. When the place is going, there's nothing like it. And that's true. I lived it. You've lived it. Anybody that's been to a Gopher game over the years has lived it. But my response, Rosie, was always, when's the last time you've been there?
Right.
And most of them had been 5, 10, 15 years. They're remembering, they're remembering the Edgerton game in 1950 when 25,000 people were there, right? That we all go to the highlights. Like, well, have you ever been there, like just for a regular game when there is no vibe and you're sitting in these seats and you can't get around? It's not a good fan experience. Like, you have to want it. You have to want it bad to go. So I don't know. I know a couple of years ago, they hired a firm, an engineering firm. Do we renovate? Do we replace? I'm fine. If you think you can renovate the entire thing, make it comfortable, make some premium areas, because that's really what they need. That's what every other team in the Big Ten, I see them all.
Sure.
That's what everybody has now that Minnesota does not. If you can do it that way and you want to keep the structure and everything, I'm fine with it. But you nailed the fan experience part. I even said this to Coyle one time, Mark Coyle, on one of our pregame interviews, and he agreed with me. I said, we're asking a lot of our fans to pull up, to show up. It's hard to get around the concourses. I think people just saw that this last weekend.
Parking's great. That's fine. Across the street, you get the ramp.
If you can get there,
you can get there in time.
And so they need to do something. And that's kind of what I hope is one of the auxiliary benefits of this run that the women just went on. And even having Nico have some pretty good crowds this year is people went back in there and they remembered, okay, this can be a cool place, but it needs some work. There needs to be just walking around the concourses when there's 10,000 people. Really difficult if you're trying to go to the women's bathroom down the hall and your seats are over there. So hopefully this gives them a little momentum that they start to think about that again, because it is a great place.
And they've actually made some improvements compared to what it was when I talk about in the early in the 70s, et cetera, et cetera. Man, it was a hot mess getting around. And I had great media seats because they'd be on the floor basically.
For sure.
Sitting next to Sid Hartman, and he'd be screaming at the officials the entire game. He knew him by name. Hey, you. Hey, asshole. You're doing a terrible job. And a guy they'd turn around and start yelling at Sid.
Different times.
It was
simpler times.
Absolutely priceless. And Bob Knight would be sitting over there. Of course, Sid's buddy. Oh my God. So tell me about your college experience. So you get done with high school, you win a couple championships. What was that route like? And was broadcasting, journalism, was that they become your major, or what was?
Yeah, I mean, my college experience, we joke about it, is I invented the transfer portal before it was a thing, and that's where like the music stops for me. Is so to talk about my focus. Like, I knew since I was 10 that everything you just laid off is what I wanted to do. KFAN radio went on the air in 1992. That's when I started listening to it, driving to and from stuff. My parents listened to it. I couldn't believe that was a real job. I couldn't believe. So when I would go to the Metrodome, I'd turn around and look in the press box. Say, who is that? Sid, Rosie, Barrero, Chad Hartman, Royce, everybody that you would think about. And so I was lucky in that way that I had no backup plan whatsoever. Like, you
were going to get into this business.
This was what I was going to do.
Interesting.
And so even when I went to the University of Iowa for 2 years, went down there to play tennis. Mm-hmm. And somebody once told me years later, and I wish I got this advice before, and I give this advice now to Division I athletes. If you're a Division I athlete, there's 3 elements to your life. There's your sport, there's your school, there's your social life. In college, you can only be good at 2 of them. Pick the right 2.
Right.
I didn't pick the right 2.
Yeah.
All right. So that tells you why I bounced around. I wasn't a great student.
You weren't focused.
Definitely wasn't focused. And honestly, I had spent so much time and energy achieving the goals that I had set out in high school. I never reset them. And that was, to me, a big problem. Like, I knew I wanted to play Division I sports. I wanted to play varsity basketball. I wanted to win state championships. Wanted to do all that stuff. Well, I did all that stuff. And then I never reset. Okay, now what do I want to do? Right. I just thought, now I'm a D1 athlete. Now it's great. I can do whatever I want. Not true. Not true. So grades weren't good, had to leave, and bounced around after that.
Was KFAN, and how did you get in there, number one? And number two, was that your first kind of gig, sports gig? So you got your foot in the door.
Yeah, I was going to work for the student radio station at Iowa if I'd gone back for my 3rd year. Okay. I'd gotten that lined up. So I was going to try to get involved that way. I got my foot in the door at the Fan because I was back home, just basically going to school at St. Thomas. I went to Normandale for a few semesters, which to me was the greatest thing I ever did because I met a couple of great professors. And
that's great advice. I've had a lot of people say that. I always say, listen, do not, because college is expensive. This just in. Normandale offers an opportunity, I think, for a lot of people. And I wish, maybe in retrospect, I would have taken advantage of that.
And I met one of my professors. His name was Mark Planke, who was a longtime Star Tribune, I think Pioneer Press writer. Mm-hmm. And so he was so those were the classes I was taking, is just journalism classes, communication classes, because that's what I wanted to do. And so that was super helpful. But a friend of mine, it was actually my high school, then a little bit after, this is a whole nother podcast, girlfriend's mom, used to work with Mick Anselmo.
Oh my!
Who she was a salesperson
I sure do.
At K102. So we were just talking one day, and she's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, honestly, I want to work at KFAN." She's like, "Are you serious?" Well, I know the guy that basically runs it. Do you want to have? I sold with him 50 years ago. You want to have lunch? So we had lunch. First of all, I should not be having lunch with Mick Anselmo as a guy who has no foot in his door at all. Kind of goes back to what I was talking about with opportunity. And so we had lunch at Chow Bella in Bloomington.
Oh my!
Which, by the way, had not been before, have not been since. As you know, that's not really my scene.
That's not your thing.
And so we have a lunch, and basically he just gets me an internship this is 2003 spring.
Not paid,
which was fine.
You just want to get your foot in the door.
I wanted my foot in the door, and I didn't care. And so I was just taking classes at that point, living at the U, which now are old apartments, the Keeler apartments right by the 17th and 4th. They were brand new. I was living there because I was hopefully going to go back to play tennis at the U, and that didn't end up working out. And so in the spring of 2003, I go to the old building, the Wells Fargo building now, at 494 in Bloomington. I meet everybody.
I remember that place well. Yeah.
I remember meeting Common in the pit. He tells me to call Don Drysdale. Nothing's changed 25 years ago. Chad Abbott, young Abbott back then, shake his hand. So stay in touch. We'll get you lined up. Yeah. So they were all full for the summer. So they didn't have any summer internships. So I just kind of bummed around and was able to get one in the fall. And in classic fan fashion, I had it all set up with Abbott, showed up for my first day, and he completely forgot that I was coming.
Shocking.
And so,
that's the exact same thing that happened to me at WCCO TV. My first internship day, I walked down to WCCO, and Al Scott was my boss at the time. He wasn't working that particular Saturday. He was supposed to tell RJ Fritz that I was coming down. Forgot to tell him.
Yeah.
So I walk in there as a 17-year-old kid.
So fired up, I bet.
Wearing a coat and tie that I got at Fitwell, which is a men's store downtown. And smitten with the receptionist. I knew that. I remember that right away. Walked downstairs in this classic newsroom and, how are you? And RJ could not have been nicer. That was the same type of thing. I was embraced right away by people that didn't need to embrace this snot-nosed kid that was walking down there.
Yeah, so that was a tough start when you show up and they don't even know you're there. And so because I really had nothing going, I was taking classes. All my friends were gone. They were all at schools all over the country. So I really got to just dive in to KFAN and the whole experience. And I thought it'd be 6 months. I thought it'd be a semester internship. And then we'll see what happens.
Well, and at some point you got to make some money. I mean, and if it's not if KFAN, obviously it's internships, et cetera, wasn't going to provide some income for you, you got to pick up some jobs here or there to make ends meet or whatever the case may be. If you're living at home, even if you're living at home, you got to make some money.
You do eventually.
Yeah.
And so I was, I would do tennis and basketball lessons for kids. I did that all summer. I was a pro at one of the clubs, so I would do that. But luckily, April of 2004, and I just remember this because we got the email because it's April now of it's 22 years.
Wow.
So when you say was that your first thing, it's my first only in everything because I've never had a job interview. That's what people always ask me. If I had to go on a job interview, I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I remember reading about him. I never did
either.
Because Chad Abbott, my boss, I was interning with him at the time, and he turned around and said, "What's your schedule like?" And I told him, and he said, "So you could work for us? Could you be a part-timer?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Okay." And he turned back around and went to work.
I don't think things have changed at KFAN. No. Exactly. Looking at the interns and, Max and a few other guys at Blakemore that come in and really taking advantage of it. And this is my next question for you before we take our break. Again, talking to Justin Gaard of KFAN. To me, you've always been, a pretty low-key personality guy. I mean, around the shop and, not someone to pound your chest or do all that, but how pushy, if that's the right word, have you had to be when it comes to getting some of these jobs or putting your name out there and say, I can do that. I consider me, whatever it might be, whether you're working with the university or whatever it might be, that to say I can take this on.
It's a good question. Man, how pushy have I been? I mean,
I've been. Maybe that's the wrong word.
No, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. Excuse me. I'm not getting emotional. I think I was lucky with the college lane is there weren't a lot of people doing it at our station. We're such a pro-centric station. So even before we got the rights to Gopher games, which has now been 15 years, I was doing Gopher Fan Line, with Justin Konzemius or Jack Brewer. So I would present stuff like that and say, hey, have you ever thought about this? I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do it at, I remember doing it at Seven Corners a bunch. We would do it at the station for road games. So because I loved college sports, I mentioned growing up at Williams Arena. My family's all from Iowa, so we would go to Iowa games, growing up. And that's kind of how I created it, is that no one's really doing this. No one really seems that interested. I want to be on the air more. At one point I'm working, the 9 to noon show. This is probably before I even started working with Barrero. And so I just started doing it. So by the time we got the rights.
So you initiated some of this.
Some of that stuff.
Some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I give credit to our bosses knew I was interested in it too. And so when we would do the Prep Bowl broadcast, I remember being a sideline reporter for a Prep Bowl. I did one game play-by-play. That's what I love about our station.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Halverson gets to do the state hockey tournament every year. What a thrill for him to do that. We've done basketball from time to time. So they find opportunities for the younger guys. Because as you know, you're one of them. The institutions, you guys have been here forever, right? There's a lot of oxygen being taken by, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want more opportunities, you got to find them, and you got to be willing to do stuff that you guys shouldn't want to do. And so that's what I did basically for the first 10, 15 years.
All you youngins out there, there's a lesson to be had there. We'll take our break right now. I'll come back and discuss more with Justin Gaard. Really enjoying this conversation. But first, let's hear from our friends at Lexus. Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. As I have told you, I recently purchased a new Lexus RX, and it is fantastic. The best car I've ever driven. Lots of room for a tall guy like me, and it just drives like a dream. Charlie Swanson and his staff have been so good to me, and I can't say enough about the wonderful treatment I've received from the service department to the people at the front desk. They're all very welcoming. We purchased an all-gas model, but keep in mind it also comes in a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. And I think my wife is going to do an NX Lexus this spring. So go to Lexus of Wayzata or Lexus of Maplewood and come and see what they have that works for you. Welcome back, Mark Rosen, along with Justin Gaard, having a very interesting conversation. As long as I've known Gaardsy, this is fun for me to kind of dig deep into who this man is and what he's about, because I I do. We have a lot of fun with at the station, almost too much fun. But I respect his work ethic and what he's done, and I think there's a lesson for a lot of young people getting into this business. And this is something else I want to talk about. There's the X's and O's of play-by-play, of preparing for your show, for doing all those things. The other side of it is establishing relationships with the decision makers, coaches, GMs, athletic directors, media, sports information directors. How at ease have you been over the years to kind of do those things that are necessary when the mic's not hot?
I've always liked that part. I've always liked the coaching part of it. My sisters are both coaches. Mm-hmm. So and I mentioned all the great coaches I had growing up. I've always, I think, had like a pretty legit respect for anybody that goes into coaching, because not all of them go into it to be PJ Fleck, right? And make $8 million a year and, live the life. Like, you get into it because you want to affect young people and help young people. So I've always been, and I'm just a competitive guy by nature. So I was a high school basketball coach for a few years. I was a high school tennis coach. So I like knowing how their brains work. So I feel like I always start there. Is I want to know what they're thinking. I like knowing what they're thinking. I feel like, not that I know what they're going through, because I was never at that level, but when you're the coach, you've got to make decisions and choices, and not everyone's going to be happy. So I've always liked that. It was hard at the beginning with the Gopher job, because they had just done the huge dramatic shift from 100 years on WCCO radio. We've joked about, Sid's reaction to that, when we were in different rooms.
So one of the best stories of all time.
Yeah. So like at the school, there was, I think, a barrier at first of, who's this guy? Didn't he go to Iowa? Like, is he calling Kirk Ferentz with our play? Stupid stuff like that. So, and coaches by nature, especially football coaches, are paranoid, as we know. So there's a certain level of trust that you have to, really, figure out. And that took a while. That took a lot of time. And so now that I've done it, this will be year 16. Wow. And if you ever start to, and luckily, like, Jerry Kill was great to work with. Tracy Clays was great to work with. You've worked with all those guys. PJ, like, I think I've been really lucky. Like, all these nightmare sideline reporter interviews that you see where the coach, or the press conferences where the coach is yelling at the media. There might be one time in 15 years where it's gotten a little tense because they didn't like something, like post game, whatever. So I think we've had great people to work with, which makes it easier.
We got to tell that Sid story real quickly, because it's a classic, and Gaardsy and I still do it.
That's how we greet each other.
It's a miracle. The weekly, who was the coach? Was it Kill?
I think it might have been Kill. Yeah.
Jerry, they had their weekly get together with the media. I quite honestly, when I was working at WCCO full time, I didn't always go to them. I just didn't, but occasion I would. Well, I happened to go there, and this is right when KFAN was getting the rights, correct?
Yes.
From WCCO
and
radio.
We were switching to FM radio at the same time.
Yeah. I grew up and I got a chance to work with Ray Christensen. Yeah. The icon of play-by-play guys and Gopher sports, et cetera, et cetera. But moving from AM to FM, Sid was not happy about it, to say the least. First of all, he saw me at the second straight news conference for Jerry Kill, and he said to me, "It's a miracle."
Yep.
Sid, of course, seeing me there. And then he had a quick quip, an only Sidism story about why KFAN was going to be a flop for Gopher sports, because they couldn't find, there was no FM radios around. Is that what he said?
Basically. And
he
said he went to Best Buy. He went to Best Buy, and the guy there couldn't even point him in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, there's no FM radio. Nobody's going to be able to find that station.
Nobody's going to find it. Nobody's going to find it. And me, of course, being... Like Sid, I have a great relationship with Chad, and I listen to. Yeah, and
he's something else.
If you want to talk about who gave me probably the biggest opportunities early on at the Fan, when I was just that 6-month intern, was Chad.
Oh, that's great to hear.
And so I owe him a ton, because then people heard me and they said, "Hey, this guy can stick around for a little while." But with Sid, I didn't know Sid at all. Like, I helped Sid, like many of us did, change the batteries on his recorder or help him with his chair, because he would just, as you know, point out anybody and just
bull in a china shop.
Say, "Hey, help me with this." Yeah. "Hey, you."
Yeah.
And so, which is fine. He's Sid Hartman. You do what you do. So I was always like 2 rows back. I tried to stay in the background, but to hear you guys just go at it like two battering rams was, that's why we still talk about it 15 years later.
There's lots of Sid stories, and I'll tell more and more as time goes on, because, Sid knew my dad and his brothers growing up in North Minneapolis. And I just loved hearing forget the sports stories. I would just love, go to Murray's, butter knife steak, and sit with Sid and listen to him talk about growing up in this, in the Depression and selling newspapers to Kid Can, all the gangsters of Minneapolis. There's a whole nother side of it, but that's for another day. I have noticed as the more mature you've gotten in this business, when you have an opportunity, either take the place of Barrero or having another opportunity, or even on social media now, which is such a big deal, you're not afraid to be edgy or to push some buttons and to get people riled up. And you have to have, I'm saying a thick skin, you have to also just ignore people.
Yeah.
But you have a little bit of a caustic personality. You're not afraid to kind of put your opinion out there and take the slings and arrows of people who, spend their life on social media.
Yeah. And there's a lot of it. And I'm actually trying to, I always say, the day that I don't need social media anymore, I'll happily be off it, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes in the next few years. Because I think it for preparation purposes, it's still a great tool for news, for sports, for, just things to bounce off of. I think it can be a very useful tool. Now, we all spend too much time on it. In 2018, I finally said, I got to stop going back and forth with people. I'm not going to win. There's no win. So I really don't get into the quote unquote Twitter battles anymore, especially, political stuff. There's never been a more polarizing time in our lifetime, my lifetime, when I'm a lot older, than there is right now.
Right. And especially when you have access to your phone and all these opinions that are out there, you're better off just ignoring all of it.
So that's kind of what I've done. And even in sports stuff, I don't argue as much anymore. I don't argue really at all, even if, and there's times where, of course, you want to. Kirk Herbstreit had a great line one time because he fired back at somebody. And I can only imagine what real famous people get. You know what I mean? I think we're the perfect level of famous. We're local, hey, you go to a restaurant, someone says hi, that's great. They leave you alone. You can live your life. We live great lives. I can't imagine being a real famous person with opinions who gets just the slings and arrows every single day. And Herbstreit said, well, every once in a while at the zoo, the animals bite back, which is a great line, but he can afford to do that. I can't. So, but to answer your question, when I have a strong opinion, I'm not and this is why I don't know if I'll be a great talk show host like a Barrero who has an opinion on everything and can defend it and doesn't mind arguing it. That's not really me. That's but when I do, I want my opinion to come from a place of, and that's why a lot of times it's on college sports stuff, because I feel like I've put in the work, I've put in the time, I've learned about it, I've invested in it, whether it's going to Final Fours for 1 million years, going to coaching clinics, just being around and talking to as many people as I can. I feel like my opinion, I can back it up. And so when it's stuff like that, defending PJ Fleck, for example.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. That's my next question, because your closeness, and I understand the situation. I work with many a coach that coaches shows, all that. PJ right now is the most well-known, and for good reason, with the most high-profile coaching job at the University of Minnesota. And PJ's got a personality that he admits isn't for everyone. And I don't think he just means the kids he's recruiting, but the general public at hand. And he's been a polarizing figure for lots of reasons. And how does that relationship work with you, and knowing, there's times you have to, obviously criticize him or criticize maybe a decision he made. But as that relationship has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I think it's good. Because again, I feel like what I've always told him too is, it's not like I need to rake you over the coals about something, but people want to know why you make a decision. People want to know why when it's, 3rd and 7, you ran the ball. That's a big one, right? Everybody loves that one, which he doesn't do as much as some people think. He has in some big spots, and it's cost him, no doubt. But I always just say, they want to know what you're thinking. Because he even said one time, he's like, I wish after play calls, I could just explain to the crowd why I did what I did. And I said, well, that's why we're here, though. That's why at halftime, I'm going to ask you about that. Or post game, you went for it here, you didn't go for it there. What were you thinking? I don't need to say, hey, you were a moron. Why did you do that? But people want to know why you did it. And I think it's important to ask. And if something, there's always these things when, like, a couple years ago when a player would transfer, and this is a lot of coaches, they don't want to talk about the players that leave, which I get, I understand. But you can't just go a whole show and ignore it. Like if a player's left or something happened or there was news, that's where the friction has come in at times, not just with PJ, with any coach that you work with, because schools want to be protective and they want to just ignore topics. And I'd say, well, here's the problem you have. If we do that now, no one's ever going to listen to this show again for any reason if we don't address the negative part. If we don't, this quote unquote, and I'm not thinking, like, I'm just thinking about generalities. Let's say quote unquote scandal happened. Well, we have to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, then no one's going to care.
Does he understand that now?
Well, he always has, I think.
Okay.
Like, but just that has been where friction generally has come with coaches. Like, college coaches don't want to talk about anything negative. They want to control everything. And that's great. You can. And there's times you can say whatever you want, but I have to ask it. Because if I don't ask it, I'm no good for you. Because then everyone's going to go, well, Guardsy just shills for the Gophers all the time. He never asks any hard question. And we don't have to belabor it, but I have to ask it. Yeah. Like, if a kid transferred mid-season, that's a big story. Or if he was a starter and he left, people want to know about that. What happened here? Again, we don't have to belabor it, but I have to ask it. Or what good is this show?
It can be a tough line to draw, as they say. And I remember even going back to when I did the Bud Grant show. And I remember I always respected Bud because I was still kind of a kid and doing the show. And here's Bud Grant, most intimidating coach I've ever been around. And I remember one time right before my show started live, he said, "Don't make sure you ask me about this." And it was not a good thing. It was a controversial call or something you didn't make. But he was kind of looking after me to say, "Listen, I'll answer your damn question. Just ask it."
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
For sure.
It opened the door for a lot more. Getting back to the Gophers and PJ Fleck, Kurt Cignetti in Indiana raised the bar to a whole different level. Undefeated, national championship, Indiana. I mean, of all schools, a basketball school, winning a football championship. And now it's sort of like, okay, well, if Indiana can do it, why can't the Gophers do it? Why can't, we look at all the other schools around the Big Ten. You live it all the time, and we see various levels of success that a lot of these schools have had. Where are we with the Gophers, and what did that Indiana championship do for the rest of these teams that are trying to secure nil money and transfers you just mentioned? Or, that we go and what's the ceiling for the Gophers?
Well, I think I speaking of Twitter, I tweeted this out either the day of the championship game or the day after. If I was working in college athletics and I was an athletic director or in charge of money, booster money, I would have woken up that day, whatever day it was, January 21st, and said, anything is possible. We are only limited by our own imagination. It's not the old days where it's going to be Alabama, Michigan, USC, in basketball, Duke, North Carolina, whoever it is. If Indiana football can be not just a national champion, but by far and away the most dominant team, to me, it eliminates every excuse. Yeah. Now you have to find the right money, because it is financial. Like, Cignetti's a great coach, obviously. Everybody knows that. Tremendous coach. I love just watching his clips. He just lit up one of his transfers from Michigan State because he was wearing gold shoes. And we don't do that anymore, which I love that.
He's in a position to do that right now.
And he can do that. And no matter what they're paying, I think Nick Marsh was the kid, whatever they're paying him doesn't matter, because we have standards here. But I think everyone should be energized that literally, Indiana, as you know, was maybe worse historically than Minnesota has ever been.
Oh, they were terrible.
One of the worst programs in the history of college sports. And they're the national champion. I was in Bloomington right before the Rose Bowl, and you should have seen all that stuff. So that, to me, it shows you that anything is possible if you can find the right pieces, find the right players. You have to have the money. People are just naive if they think finances don't play a big role in this. Look at what's happening with Michigan basketball right now. Same thing. Now, better historically, they've been to Final Fours forever, but if you have the right pieces in place, literally anything's possible. And I think this is a big stretch for PJ, because it's crazy. He's been here 10 years. I'm old enough to remember when he was leaving after every season. And by the way, he's perfectly leveraged just the rumor of leaving to contract extensions. And
he's
I know
the Kirk Cousins of college coaches, maybe.
He's done pretty well. But I also think he's done a good job, because I always say this, Rosie, when everybody is striving to be outstanding, when everyone's striving to be great and investing at those levels, it's hard to be average, like in this day and age. Because when I grew up, certainly when you grew up, it was the Big Two and the Little Eight, right? It was Ohio State, Michigan, and then Iowa came in with Hayden Fry and kind of disrupted. And then for a while, some other teams got in there. But now everybody's got facilities. Everybody's got money. Everybody's paying these players. Everybody's investing. So it's hard. It's not like the margin, which is great because it's open for everybody, but it's open for everybody. So everybody kind of has, as you say, these seats are available for everybody. So I think this is a big stretch for PJ because I've likened it to just the vibe I get around when Mason was here.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd had some success. He'd had some good seasons. He'd built the program up to where a bowl game was an expectation every year. And then he took a couple steps back, obviously got fired after getting a contract extension. Well, that was like year 10. Mm-hmm. That's where PJ is now. Now, Mace will always tell you he had Adam Weber in his back pocket ready to go for the next generation. And he was excited to see where that went. He'd had the program built. It was stable. And I think it is with PJ, just where 7-8 wins now is pretty much mark it down. And now he's got this kid, Drake Lindsay, who some people think is the best quarterback they've had in 50 years. And like, what does he do with this? Like, I think it could be a really special couple of years because I think that highly of Drake. But Mace never got to live to see his Adam Weber, who has spent some time in the NFL, probably the best quarterback that he had. And PJ is going to get that opportunity. Now that
Drake's committed to staying here. He's locked in.
So I'm excited to see where it goes because it's hard. Like every game the last 2 years seems like it goes down to the wire, which is great. Like it's fun. Every game feels important. There's really no blowouts. Obviously, when you play Ohio State and Oregon, Iowa, those games did not go well. So I'm excited to see where it goes because I think it's in a really good spot.
A couple to wrap things up here with Justin Gaard. What is it about you in the city of Indianapolis that gets your dander going? Because that's the one thing where I do see you reacting very sarcastically, but for good reason on social media, Twitter in particular, because of all the big events. And I know they're in big competition with Minnesota for a lot of the same events, whether it be WrestleMania, Final Fours, NFL, whatever it might be. They're out there and they seem to win more than their share that they lose.
They do, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And you probably know them like I do because we know a lot of the same people. And Indiana's brilliant because 30 years ago they said, as a state and as a city, this is what we're going to be known for. We're going to invest in this. We're going to finance this. We're going to put the money where our mouth is, and we're going to bring these events. By the way, Indy's a fine host city. Yeah. It's fine.
They do a lot of the good things.
They do, and
they have the facilities right there. They have the convention center, and
it's great.
Yeah,
it's very easy. I get it, but what's funny to me is that it's basically we need to cancel building this ballroom in the White House and just move the nation's capital to Indy. It's gotten so over the top, and I blame the national media for this because they like the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's, they like the steakhouse, and they just like the cliche. St. Louis is a good baseball town. You just like to say it. Indy's a great town. So that's kind of how it started. And yes, as a Minnesotan, it does bother me because Minneapolis is literally the same. Everything's walkable. We have great restaurants. Hotels are fine. Yep. It's literally the same city. You can walk. When the Final Four was here in 2019, you could do everything you could do in Indy. But they've got this perception that nobody knows how to do it better. Nobody embraces it better. And so I just like to tweak about that because it does bother me that they have this crazy perception of only they know how to do things. Mm-hmm. And actually what started it, you got me going now, was when the Big Ten tournament was here for men's and women's, and like the attendance wasn't very good on Wednesday or Thursday, and people were tweeting about this is why it should never leave Indianapolis.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And I'm like,
come on.
Unfortunately for me and for Mike Grimm, we've had now this year was better. We had a double bye, so we got to show up on Friday. Unfortunately, I've called a lot of games on that first Wednesday of the Big Ten tournament because the team wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. It sucks no matter where you are. Indiana, Chicago, it's going to be in Vegas next year for the women, Minneapolis. So that's what bothered me is that people, whenever there's a little bit of a downturn in like attendance or something, well, this is why Indy should just have it. We should never move it from Indy. For the record, every Final Four should be in San Antonio.
Yeah, I agree. San Antonio.
That's where it should be.
When I went there, it was a year the Gophers, went to
that was their regional.
That was a regional.
Yep.
Tim Duncan was named Player of the Year. I saw him walking around the hallways, the Riverwalk. Yeah, it is sensational.
That's where every final. If people are gonna say this is where everybody should do it,
yeah, I agree.
It should be San Antonio.
Yeah,
and Indy's fine.
It is,
but people act like you're going to Paris. Yeah. And that's where it just bothers me.
Well, just to wrap things up with Justin Gaard, you have your 3 kids, young kids. What are their ages again? They're
11, 9, and 7.
Well, they're right in their wheelhouse of a lot of activity, and a lot of it falls on your wife and everything else. But just kind of do you see, when balancing being a father, as I mentioned, and your career and where you want to go, you think much about that, or are you going to just kind of take it year by year and
where I want to go?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, yes, it's like the balance part of it's hard. I got great advice from a Gopher assistant coach a million years ago. I used to watch him run out of the tunnel, and the first thing he would do was go find his family. And he had little kids at the time. I said, I just thought that was cool that's, you haven't been around. Obviously it's fall, like you go find them. And he said, I found that when you make the sports stuff that you do a we thing, then it's not like you're leaving them all the time. And it was just good advice. I thought that if they feel like they're included, and my kids, as I told you, are locked in on the Wolves, on the Vikings,
that's great.
On the Gophers specifically, because that's where I'm gone the most. So they are completely dialed. So when I go to Sacramento, they're mad at me that I'm not bringing them, but they're having a watch party with their cousins.
That's fantastic.
So that was the best advice I got in terms of, because we do, and
make it a family affair.
This. I mean, I heard you when you retired talking about, because one time my wife asked me, hey, would you ever do what Rosen did? Do the nightly sportscast. And I said, well, would you like me to be gone until midnight every night?
You do not want that.
And she said, not really. I said, that's the life though.
No,
and so it's
exactly.
And so I've been aware, and I appreciate you talking about that kind of stuff, because there are a lot of sacrifices when you have these jobs and they're great jobs. I mean, can you imagine doing anything else with your life?
Never.
I can't. I never wanted to. But there are things that you have to work around that the regular 9 to 5 doesn't have to think about as much.
And we get the bonuses of working with guys like Meat Sauce in Common.
What a dream.
I mean, it's just
what a dream.
Nut house that we experience every single day.
Taking time away from our families to go spend it with them.
I'm not on the power trip anymore, and it's as if I'm still on the power trip, because I get ripped every morning, or they play my sound bites as if I'm still there. I get to work with Common 3 days a week. I still text with Sauce. You know what, though? It keeps me young, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
We're not cut out to do anything else.
No, we're not.
We do not survive.
Really appreciate your time. I know we got to run here, and you got your kids on the end of spring break. We'll call it that, on a 34-degree day here in the Twin Cities. But appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.